Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, it's so nice to see it.
There
Yay.
are people coming from all over the world,
Oh, that's so nice.
literally all over the world. Mitch, hey.
How wonderful.
Teeny. Hi.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Carol.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, Mitch.
There's my dining room.
Hi.
Hi.
Ellie.
Oh,
My brother. Do you hear me? Anybody
And
hear
my
me? Hi,
cousin.
Carla.
Hey.
Hey, where's Hayes?
Whoever just said, can anybody hear me? We can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, there's Hayes. Hi, Hayes.
Hi.
Hey, Hillary.
Emily, hello.
David,
So cool.
Hazel.
Hi,
Oh, there you are. Hey.
Hazel.
Hi, Ron.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
Oh,
We weren't sure what to expect. Should we have our cocktails with us? And
Yeah, cocktails.
Yes.
Wine.
We have
Oh, I
that.
forgot.
yeah, right. Yes, I'll go get my wine.
Hey.
I wasn't even sure if we needed to get dressed.
You have to.
He dresses
Put a shirt on just for you.
up today.
Only above the waist.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'm good then.
You do what you will.
hello,
Dave.
James.
Dave.
Hello, Ani. Hello, Alexi.
Weather advisory as freezing
Hi,
rain
Emily.
create
Oops.
ice
Dave,
conditions.
Dave, I'm gonna sit,
Not
I'm gonna watch this on our
Nice.
TV, so you won't see us on the screen.
Exactly.
Okay,
Hey, nice to
All right.
see you.
The ice down at Point Pleasant Beach. You have to take my word for it, but the beach is off in the background there. It's only about 30 in Tom's River, where the rain has been falling last several hours.
Somebody has their radio. Or
That
TV.
is freezing drizzle or freezing rain, and a lot of spots have been seeing that.
I muted everyone, but I can unmute if you'd like. I don't know. Unmute? Can we unmute?
Now we have to unmute ourselves if we'd like to.
Right.
Am I unmuted?
Keep most people.
Everybody's,
Hi.
Tomorrow morning, that is going to make
Somebody has their radio on.
yeah.
Valentine's Day, and this is the first
Television.
Turn off your radio.
week this week. Break down what's going on.
Hey, Rita.
Hey, Mambo.
hi, Rita.
I jumped. I didn't know you were coming.
They can hear the.
Okay, turn it off.
Hey, Susanna.
Hey, Joy. My name on too.
Hey.
43 voted to acquit the president of inciting the siege.
Turn the radio off.
He has their radio on, I think.
Senators
It's the TV. I have to turn it. I have to mute it.
This is like being at work. Somebody always has their TV or radio on.
Now, the news is on here.
Now we need some cats or dogs walking across the.
Right.
I
Let me
know.
put my-
Happened. So, wait.
I think I'll put
On
my
your
cat filter on.
filter.
That right? I am not a cat.
This used to be my client to tell We're not muted.
Wow, look at Ron. You got that fancy filter, huh? You look devilish, like you're in a devil's cave.
Oh, no matter where I am, I'm in the devil's cave. So
So I understand.
Oops.
We'll take one more minute and then we'll get started.
So I'm seeing people from California, from Switzerland,
Wow.
Switzerland. Wow.
from New Jersey.
What time is it in Switzerland?
Midnight.
Oh,
Yeah, what
Wow.
time is it in New Jersey?
And there's Richard. We have
What day is it? That's the question.
Tomorrow. Again, midnight.
So welcome, everybody. It is so nice to see all of you. Welcome to our
Likewise.
artist talk and our opening reception at 4th Gallery. Can everybody hear me? Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Just want to make sure. Okay, that's what I do to my students when I'm teaching. All right, thank you. So we're open to the public. So Karen.
Why don't you mute everyone now?
Okay, good idea. Okay. Oh, here's somebody coming in. Okay. So to see the work after you see it here today for our artist talk, we're also open to the public and with mask wearing and careful social distancing. Also, all the work is up on Artsy, and I put the link in the chat, so you can check the work out there as well. Our hours are Wednesday and Thursday from 4 to 7 p.m., Saturday and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Also, you can call or email the gallery if you would like to make an appointment to see or to view the work on another day. We're going to look at David's show first, and then I'm going to ask him some questions about his work. Next, we'll move on to the artist in the project space. And if you would like, you can type questions into the chat and we'll address it after. Also, at that time, you can unmute yourself to ask questions that way as well. So let's look at David's work.
Okay, is it okay for me to start or do you want to? Okay, so we're going to look at the pictures that are in the show and I'll say a few words about them and then there'll be time to ask questions or put in comments in the chat or whatever a little later on. There are 15 prints in the show. They are printed with pigmented inks on heavyweight fine art paper. All the photographs were made in 2020 and 2021. They were all made within a mile or so of where I live in Jackson Heights. So it really is recent color work. This first image I call Shield for some reason. In Jackson Heights, everybody has folding tables out on the sidewalks, selling all kinds of things, sunglasses, hats, perfume, blankets, everything. And during the COVID time, a lot of these tables have face masks and goggles, hand sanitizer, and shields. And I walked by this particular table many times, but on one particular day, the sun was shining and the light was hitting it in a certain way. And it looked almost like a Renaissance painting. And it kind of made the face light up. So I really had to take that picture. Okay. This is a kind of picture I've been doing for years, just taking elements of urban landscape and sampling them and kind of recombining them into a new composition. There are a lot of elements here that show up in my other photographs. Those vent pipes, cast iron pipes that come up and then curl around, the PVC pipe that comes down from the air conditioners, those blue tarps, which I love. And this particular one seemed to kind of take on a life of its own, like it was animate. I call this graphic design, which is kind of a play because that's what it says on the sign up at the top in English and Spanish. This is part of a series I've been working on called Hardworking Storefronts. When I first saw this, I was across the street and I just saw a graphic design with these squares of kind of yellowish squares on a blue background and a red square up in the corner. But when I crossed the street to take a picture, I realized that there was writing on these cardboards, and it seemed a little over the top. But as I look at this picture more, I come to have more sympathy for the owner of this shop. It seems like, you know, it's pretty hard these days to keep a mom and pop business going, and especially during this time, and then to have people come and just throw stuff on the sidewalk, that could push me over the edge, I imagine. I call this anti-graffiti. What seems to have happened is some kids did some writing on the windows, and somebody came out with a rag full of solvent and tried to get rid of it by just smearing it all over the place. And what it did is it created these amazing new shapes and dribbles, and they seem to almost take on some life. They're kind of like ghosts to me. This is something you see in Jackson Heights all over the place. Rooms for rent, these homemade signs, they show up on electrical boxes, on light poles, on stanchions to the overhead 7 train. And, you know, it's a working class neighborhood. It's a mostly immigrant neighborhood. And a lot of people, the prices of the rentals are very high. So a lot of people are just looking for a room and sharing kitchens, sharing bathrooms. This particular storefront looks like it's been closed a long time, so it's ended up getting layer after layer of these room for rent signs. And I kind of feel like behind every single one, there's dramas and stories, people looking for a place to stay, people trying to rent out a room so they can afford the place they're staying now. That's the kind of feeling I get from these. When I first saw this, I was, you know, drawn to the red awning, of course, and this huge face with strings coming out of the eyebrows. And of course, the face is starting to change color in the sun, which they always do. But kind of what really grabbed me is when I saw that the strings coming out of the eyebrows continued into the lines of the wires on the building. This is a kind of work I've been doing for years, just repurposing the visual elements that are around in an urban environment and turning them into a new composition of my own. What I like about this is how rectilinear and square the background is, and then the sober warning about, you know, you're being observed, and then the kind of almost anarchic graffiti covering it right over, and this slash of yellow that seems highly rebellious to me. This is the image that was on the show card. you're standing right at the corner, and so the walls go away from you in both directions. This again is like a gift when I find something like this and I find an angle where I can combine all the elements. This is the entrance to a nightclub on Roosevelt Avenue. There are many such nightclubs. This knight in not such shining armor, I found really striking. It's actually burned into the wood of the door with one of those burning tools. But it seems sort of hyper masculine to me. I imagine people standing, waiting to get into this nightclub and looking at this knight, rampant knight. But then the rug down below is all about love, amore, amour. You know, it's love, love, love. And then in between on the little step, it says, watch your step. So. There are a lot of these karate blow up figures all over the neighborhood. This time it just, everything seemed to fall together in the frame of the photograph. All the little squares lined up, the light was perfect. And this to me is a good, good representation of the neighborhood, just walking around. This is a display of sandals outside a dollar store. I love this kind of subject. It lets me go wild with color, and I think it's really beautiful. And I love that Jackson Heights is full of this mom and pop retail, that it isn't a bunch of bland chain stores. And of course, that's kind of under threat right now because a lot of these businesses are going under. But I hope it survives. This is really one of the last great working class neighborhoods in New York that has this kind of thing. There are a lot of spas also in Jackson Heights, and I'm often struck by these sort of ethereal, highly feminine images that are stuck in the middle of very gritty urban environments. Once again, you can see my little pipe down there. And there's something just very compelling about seeing this in the middle of Roosevelt Avenue, especially now that they're creating all these dining spaces using plywood and plastic outside, you know, for outdoor dining. This is a window display in our local stationery store / art supply store. Sometimes I'm just not sure what to think of it. It's kind of amazing to me. And it seems to have this sort of science fiction-y character to it. It's kind of horrifying, but really it's not the guts that are horrifying, but it's kind of the enclosure in plastic and of course the price tag. This I call saints. They're kind of two kinds of saints. You probably can't see, but there are a lot of details. The hand here is broken a little bit and there's plaster showing and the light's hitting it, so it kind of glows. I love how Saint Nick seems to be dancing on the fire escapes there. And this is another blissful scene. What I did when we were hanging the exhibition, we put this on one window in the front, and the image of with the shield in the other window, and the two kind of bracket the exhibition, and it looks pretty cool from outside. So those are a few words about the images.
Thank you so much, David. It's so great to see the work and to hear what you have to say about them. It's really interesting. I have a few questions I'd like to ask. In all of your photographs in the show, the color is very rich and luminous. Can you tell us a little bit about your process and how you attain this stunning palette?
Thank you very much, Susan. Well, I'm not sure what to say about it. I used to work with film and in the darkroom, and in those days you could make some changes in the color, but you were somewhat limited by your materials. You sort of were trying to optimize what the materials would give you. But as I've been working with digital files and digital printmaking, I've been able to kind of take control of the color and pick my own color palette the same way a painter or a printmaker would. And it's really, you know, opened up a lot of things for me. The color, you know, it's my color, and some people like it more than other people. I had a funny experience with a portfolio of color work that I showed many years ago. I brought it to show to a curator at a museum, and they looked at it and they looked at the color and they said, "Why would you do something like that?" And then I took the same work and I showed it to a curator in another museum, and they were, "Oh, the color, that makes the prints," you know. So I guess it's that way with all artists, but you know, it's personal. The color is personal now.
I also wanted to know, humor seems to be a really important part of, it plays a really important role in your work. And I'm just wondering, is that something that you seek out when you take the photographs?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely part of the work. I don't know, there's humor, there's irony, there's just kind of what the hell? All those things are related to each other. I go through a funny cycle with humor because often I'm attracted to something because I see something that's kind of humorous, but then I spend a lot of time with the photographs and I really bond with them, and I start seeing all the layers in them. And by the time I get to putting them up on a gallery wall, I'm kind of serious about them, you know? And then this great thing happens, which is other people come and they look at them and they'll like laugh, or they'll get it. And I get to enjoy that all over again. It sort of brings it back to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think humor is one of the levels of the work, and it's kind of a gateway sometimes to other things, to kind of little dramas I see happening behind the work, or cultural observation, or some psychological aspect of the work, or just something that hopefully speaks to you emotionally.
One of the things that is so interesting about the show is that, as you said in your artist statement, this body of work is a continuation of 3 overlapping long-term projects: hardworking storefronts, surface tension, and unintended. Can you tell us a little about what connects these projects?
Yeah, well, those are, you know, the names that we artists give to groups of work, and we have to do that, you know. And sometimes I wonder, But yeah, can we go back to, I think it's like maybe the fourth image, the one that's anti-graffiti. It's near the beginning. Yeah, that one. That's a good example of all three groups of work, kind of, because on the one hand, it's unintended. That's something that photography is good at, is showing things, putting a focus on things that are going on in the visual environment that people didn't mean to happen. And in this case, I think whoever did this was really focused on getting rid of the graffiti. But what they've ended up doing is creating something that I find really fascinating, these ghost-like shapes that are held in this grid that they also made unintentionally with this bright blue painter's tape that makes it all a little bit like, I don't know, some kind of planned artistic grid. So there's that aspect of it. And then another aspect of it, surface tension. I'm very interested in what happens when you take a three-dimensional subject and you flatten it to make a new graphic artwork out of it. There's something that happens in that process that I find really fascinating. And in this case, the subject is only like, a foot deep or something, but flattening it and making it into a graphic and printing it on paper brings out the, not just the graphic elements of it, but kind of draws attention to these figures that are floating in the graphic space. And then I probably don't have to explain hardworking storefronts, but that's another series of work that I do.
Well, thank you. And then the last question I had was, which artists have influenced you a lot, and in what way have they influenced you?
I've been influenced by so many artists, but I'd say that they fall into kind of two groups. One is just the whole tradition of classic landscape photography, all the way from the more romantic landscape photographers like Edward Weston and Ansel Adams, all the way through the more socially conscious ones like Walker Evans or Richard Misrock. So I'm part of that tradition, and I'm carrying it forward. I definitely see myself in that way. But then I've also been really influenced by modernist painting. And actually, there are some photographers who work really closely with abstract expressionist painters like Aaron Siskind, who was a teacher of mine for a while, Minor White. They make these very abstract photographic compositions that a lot by moving in and just taking a wall that's full of detail or peeling paint and turning it into a composition. I've been thinking a lot about a school of art that's called precisionism, which I hadn't known about before, but it was active in the 1920s and 30s. And it was related to abstract expressionism and cubism, but it was really caught up in looking at what the built surface of society looks like. And I'm really into that. And it was interested in light falling on surfaces. It was interested in very kind of formal composition. So I feel like I have a lot in common with some of those artists who included people like Charles Sheeler and people think of Hopper sometimes as one of the artists, or I don't know. I'm having trouble coming up with some of the artists, but it's often considered one of the modernist movements, maybe the first of the modernist movements that originated inside the United States instead of being imported from Europe. So, like Paul Strand is one of the artists. Georgia O'Keeffe is often considered a precisionist.
Well, I have to thank you so much, David. You know, it's one thing to see the work, which is really captivating, but then to hear you talk about it and to just hear all these other levels that are in the work in the way that you speak about it is really fascinating. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan.
We're going to move on to the artists and the project space. So we're going to look at Karen Gibbons' work, Joy Makon's work, and Richard Barnett's work. And just a reminder, the three of them. And then just as a reminder for each artist, just so that we make sure that we have enough time for questions from the audience, we're going to limit the answer to each question for 3 minutes. So here are we're going to take a look at all the installation shots first. And then we're going to take a look at Karen's work. So I just also wanted to mention that Karen also has a show up at Sweet Lorraine Gallery, and that's at TI Studios in Red Hook, and it will be up until February 28th. So Karen, it's really great to see all of this work. The first question I wanted to ask you was, in your statement about these really beautiful pieces that you've included in this show, you say that the images refer to both physical bodies and our collective body. These works are reflections on the idea that we are all one, and the path of transformation is both personal and collective. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Sure. I think that, you know, in all my work, I'm sort of grappling with the impulse to respond to what's outside around me and the impulse to use art holistically for, you know, my own process, and to just kind of get right with myself. And I think the more I sort of embrace both things together, the more I feel like it's really one pursuit. That when you're looking and I do think in this past year, where we're really limited in what we can do and the distractions that we create by going out and doing things, that we're sort of called to look within. And I think also the events around us are calling, you know, on a global scale to look at, you know, how we're handling living in this world. So that's kind of what I'm referring to. And I find that, you know, either way I'm looking at it while I'm working, it kind of works. Like, you know, am I talking about what's happening to the earth, or am I talking about what's happening to me? It doesn't really matter.
Makes sense. The other thing that I find so interesting is that you combine many different aspects as well as materials into your work. And each piece has a wholeness, and it comes together as something certainly greater than all its parts. Can you tell us a little bit how you achieve that harmony?
Sure. I think what I enjoy doing as an artist is combining imagery and abstraction, or at least currently I'm enjoying that kind of tension of working with imagery and abstraction. And I think the layering of what I'm kind of referring to as sacred geometry, this geometric aspect that feels very symbolic to me and very connected to those aspects of geometry that you find in nature, and that's helping me to really pull it together and abstractly, and to kind of connect the images.
So interesting.
That answers your question.
Yes, it certainly does. And lastly, can you tell us some artists that have been a strong influence for you in this body of work?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I almost, I think I'm being influenced all the time by art that I look at, and other things that I look at, not always art. And I think when I see an artist that's doing something really well, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. They're doing that too well. I have to do my thing. But then when I think about it, I owe a debt to artists that I've always revered, as I kind of have developed my own way of working. And that's people like Robert Rauschenberg and Jasper Johns, and also sculptors especially have been, influential in that way, that I'm not trying to make what they're making, but I'm trying to get across some in a similar way of that, combining something abstract with something specific. And so artists like Martin Puryear and Eva Hesse and Jack Whitten, they're very important to me. And but what I was thinking about when you asked that before is I kind of think it's some combination of like Dorothea Rockburn meets Chagall meets Robert Rauschenberg.
And somehow that all makes sense. It really does. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. We're going to move on to Joy Makon's work now. And she's going to be showing us some beautiful watercolors. And I just wanted to mention that in 2021, Joy became a signature member of the American Watercolor Society. And you won't be surprised by the fact that she's a signature member when you see these watercolors. So let's look at each one of them. And the first question I'd like to ask you, Joy, is how has this last year influenced what you've chosen to paint? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. You have to unmute.
Okay, you can hear me? Yeah.
Yes, you can.
I paint what I see, and I usually see it by going around and going places and looking at things. And I haven't been doing that. I've been living under my bed in fear, like a lot of other people. And it's been really hard, but I have found things in my neighborhood that have been there that I've always loved. And that's what I have brought in to the work I've been doing. It's been kind of rough for that reason. Yeah.
Well, the work that you've produced, even under these difficult times, shows that you're still doing you're still thriving as an artist. So that's nice to see.
I'm really glad that I have that. My studio is in my house. This is my studio. And so I am lucky that, yes, that I've been able to turn to that even more now.
Would you say that your studio practice has changed? And if it has, how has it changed?
I'm distracted by a lot more things nowadays. Sometimes it's just taking care of what's going on in the house. I've had medical issues, and so has everyone in my house. We've dealt with that. Sometimes we just have to worry about how we're going to get something done during the day. And so it's distracted me. I haven't had all the time that I've wanted to have to paint, but when I do, it's really actually a gift, and I feel very fortunate to have that, yeah, to turn to it.
Yeah. And one of the other things I was curious about, I believe that you use your own photographs for almost all of your compositions. What are some of your favorite places to search for images that you turn into paintings? Or
Well, this painting we're looking at here is actually a photograph that my friend Basha Helwig took. It is of a September day when the smoke from the West Coast fires made its way over into New York City. And I remember that day so clearly because the color in the sky was incredible. And I happened to see, I was not in Central Park then, but my friend was, and I admired her photograph. And it was one of the few occasions where I asked her and I used someone else's photo reference to create something that I had seen in the sky, but not the actual landscape. The other painting here is of Greenwood Cemetery, which is right by my house. And I've been going there for years, but during this pandemic, it has really become the place that I go for walks. And I love Greenwood Cemetery. And I have never wanted to paint any of the monuments there. I'm just aware of it. It's a place of, it's a holy ground for burial for a lot of people. It just doesn't appeal to me that way. The photographs do. But it wasn't until it snowed. And this snow is from December. And the snow just did something else to the entire landscape there. And I loved how the sky looked like the snow. And there was my painting. This is the only painting I've done this past year from Greenwood. I don't know if I'll have more, but it was a really amazing experience to see that.
well,
And that's what I bring into my studio when I'm working.
well, thank you so much, Joy. And the last artist that we're going to look at right now is Richard Barnett's work. So let's take a look at his work. So, Richard, in your statement, you said, play is often more honest than inner or outer social expectations, which may direct us to appear composed, cheerful, or normal. I love the fact that you talk about play as a mode for art making. Can you talk a little bit more about this?
Where's Richard?
He is, I saw him come in, so let's make sure he's here. Richard, are you here? Maybe you're muted. I'm looking through the, oh, there you are. Richard, you have to unmute. Richard, you have to unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me okay now?
Now we can hear you, yes.
Okay, fine, thank you. Okay, well, I'd really come at it from two directions. One of them is that I've always thought of myself more as a sculptor than a painter or anything else, maybe a drawer. What I've been trying to do much more lately is get work out in the forms of drawings that are colored drawings, or watercolors, so I'll call them watercolors. And so that's a kind of play that's almost like solitaire. It's me and me, except I don't know how the game is going to end. So I can't really say where the starting points are because I'm not that much into observing myself while I work. I'm not that interested really, because the thing that counts to me is getting the work done. It's not documenting what my process, if you want to call it that, is. But I can do things. Georgia O'Keeffe expressed this very well, that the only place that she found that she could really do everything that she wanted to do was in her work. And that's something that I've found too. It's so that's part of it. The other part of it is that I'd love if I had the opportunity to design sculpture for play sculpture that people could literally play in. And many years ago, I guess when I was in my 20s and 30s, I worked with a group called Dance Theater Workshop. I don't think they even exist anymore. And I made objects for them and for another dance company, the Wetzig Dance Company, which I don't think exists anymore either. And I made objects for people to use in dances. And it was a lot of fun. And it was very satisfying to try to come up with pieces that would work and that wouldn't just be clutter for the dancers. I have photographs of those pieces somewhere, but it's always interested me to make something that people can use. So this one here, Playland at Twilight, is a drawing that I did, and then I put color in it, of some possible play sculptures that people could use as a kind of climb in and out of, climb around in, and they're like jungle gyms, really. That's to me, that's what it's about.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I also wanted to ask you, your pieces in the show hover between evoking humor and a feeling of melancholy, which makes them so compelling. Is there something that you intend to include when you begin, or does this just develop as you're working?
Well, for me, almost all good humor is melancholic. It has that aspect to it. I don't separate them at all. In fact, sometimes I'll turn on the TV and I'll realize that if it's some comedy, like they're running these reruns of Friends, and there's a lot of sadness and melancholy in that. And when it's good, it's really good. It's really good theater. So to me, they're not separate.
Interesting. And can you tell us a little bit about your process in making these works?
Well, with this one, I really don't remember that well how I did it. I know that I did it rather quickly and found when I started adding the color to the drawing, because usually I draw first, at least I did some of the drawing first, that the ink was not waterproof and it was bleeding, hence the darks in the two figures that you see on the left. And then I realized I had to slow down and try to apply color and not, blur out what was already there. But it was okay. I mean, sometimes what happens is I'll do pieces, I'll put them away, and then when I look at them later, I'll decide what I like and what I don't.
That makes sense.
But the title, The Family, I actually come from a very nice family, a big family and a very nice family. So it's not a comment on my family. I wouldn't send it around as a Christmas card, for instance.
Thank you so much, Richard. I really appreciate hearing about them. So now we're going to take questions that are written in the chat, as well as, let's see, let me just make the chat bigger so I can see it all. And then also if people, after we look at the questions in the chat, if people have questions they want to unmute. So let's see. I'm just trying to make this bigger. Okay. So Karen Gibbons said, not a question, but a comment. David, the compelling aspect of Jackson Heights is seeing the neighborhood through your eyes. The mundane becomes sublime. I would definitely have to agree with that. And Rita Hargrave wrote, is it easier to shoot now that there are so few people?
Actually, the streets have been pretty busy in Jackson Heights. It's interesting. I have to pay a lot of attention to keeping social distancing. The neighborhood is full of what they, workers who have to continue to work. And a lot of people are out on the street. People live in very small apartments. So actually it isn't that much less crowded than it has been previously. I have to work kind of fast because there's a lot of pedestrian activity. So I have to be kind of decisive and, I can't just usually stand in one spot for a long time.
That's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. I remember Jackson Heights well that way. Carol Cornicelli said that she loves the sense of humor and the composition in your photos.
Thank you.
And Janet Peterson said, is there a time of day you favor to go out and shoot? The color is so strong. I imagine the end of the day kind of light.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I do go out a lot late afternoon. I also sometimes like to go out when there's no sun and just flat light, because I find I can work with that sometimes.
That's interesting. Well, it's certainly working in your photographs. Terry Siegel says, being a Zoom tour and looking at a 6x8 screen, could David give us a sense of the size of the pieces?
Sure. The most of them are 14 by 21, and the paper sheet, excuse me, is 17 by 24. So that's the size of all except one. There's one smaller image that's basically 6 by 9 inches.
Okay. Lee Blanchard says, I love these works. How has COVID changed your process, if at all?
It's changed it a lot. I actually haven't gone out that much. I'm kind of amazed when I think about it that when I do go out, I'm so charged up that I seem to get a lot of work done. But I'm fortunate, you know, I spend a lot of time at home working on digital files and making prints. So it hasn't completely changed what I do. One thing is it's kept me close to home. I don't want to get on the subway. I don't want to go to another neighborhood. And that's worked out perfectly well for me.
And another question from Rita Hargrave. How has moving to Jackson Heights changed your subject matter and approach?
Well, I guess Hazel and I have been in Jackson Heights now for, must be close to 7 years.
Wow.
And it's just so rich visually. We've both fallen in love with it. For photographers, it's just like kind of paradise. It's so vibrant. All the storefronts have so much personality. The streets are full of life. There's some very dramatic things that happen with the overhead 7 train. So I don't feel like I'm looking for different things necessarily from what I was before. I feel like I'm finding more. And I also feel like because I like the neighborhood so much, it's kind of pushed me to, you know, to work as much as I can.
And the last comment is from Karen Gibbons. She just wanted to congratulate Joy for becoming a signature member. And now if anybody would like to unmute and ask any other questions, we'd love to hear from you. We could probably unshare, you know, stop sharing so that we can see everybody. That's good. And let me just make sure I've seen all the questions. Let's see. Any other questions? Yeah, no, that's about it. Oh, Joanne, you can unmute.
Yeah, I am. I think
Okay, great.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask David. When I'm looking at your, there's so much information that each time I look at the photograph, you know, from one time to another, I find more things that I discover more and more in each photograph. And I was wondering, like, when after you've taken the photograph and you're back in the studio working on the photograph, are you finding things that you didn't see initially when you took the shot, or is it always pretty much what you expected?
You know, it's pretty much what I expect. I'm in a really heightened state. When I'm photographing, I'm like super receptive. And I try to see the photograph as fully as possible, and even like what it'll look like when it's printed in advance. I do miss some things, and then there's things that are, you know, because I go in and work on parts of the file, and sometimes I do see things that aren't even visible in the print, but they're there in the file. So that's kind of funny. But I tend to be tend to see what almost all of what's in the images.
Amazing work. I love it.
Thank you.
Karen?
Yeah, David, I may have asked you this before, but do you crop your images, or are you seeing that full frame? I imagine you see the full frame and that you know exactly what it is, but the croppings are amazing. Like the edges are amazing. So I'm just curious what your process is with that.
Well, it's interesting because I do crop sometimes, but one factor in what I do is that I have to leave a little extra around the edges anyhow, because I like to straighten the images so that they're like head on. I don't want like the converging lines you get from looking upwards or downwards. So to be able to do that, when I process the files, I have to leave a little extra. So sometimes I'll take a photograph that's cropped exactly the way I want it, and then I'll step back a little bit and I'll leave that little bit extra around it for the processing that I know I'm going to have to do. And then I got to say, sometimes when I'm looking at it, I just realize it needs to be cropped a little bit, and I do that.
It's fascinating. Thanks.
Thank you.
Let me check the other.
I have a question or a thought I wanted to share with David. The work is so powerful, and I think there's only one actual human being in this selection of work, which is the woman sitting with her back to us in the laundromat. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And yet every piece is so full of human bodies, that the traces of human bodies, or the whole sense of humanity without people actually being in the images. And it's really striking. Is that an intentional thing that you're working with?
Yes, and that's such a wonderful comment. Behind all of these storefronts, facades, and designs, I always see little dramas. I see people's psychology at work. I see reflections of culture, and I see labor. I see people working and struggling. And yeah, that's, you know, for you to be able to see that in the work is like the highest compliment. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody else that would like to? Oh, okay.
Hey, David.
Hey, Gene.
Great to see your work as always.
Thank you.
I was just curious. It just struck me. I know you have a lot of equipment. How do you decide what equipment to take out, or what, you know, does it just you working with a certain setup that you're interested in or you want to work with for a while, or, you know, what inspires you in terms of, you know, what you take out when you go shoot?
Yeah, I'm guilty as charged. I do have a lot of equipment. But, you know, I don't use it, you know, a lot. What I very much do what you were just saying. I have right now, I have one camera and one lens that I've been going out with for a year or more. And I start to see the way that equipment is going to see, you know, in terms of how wide and even some of the qualities of the lens and the camera. So, you know, it's weird. I have a lot of stuff sitting around that theoretically I could add more variety to my work or whatever, but I find for me, it works better to kind of know what my equipment is going to see and then to look at the world that way. I'm sure I lose a lot of images that way. If I had some kind of zoom lens and I could constantly change, I might find more stuff, but somehow this way of working is, I don't know, it just works better for me.
Thanks.
And Ellen, I believe you had a question too. You have to unmute.
Unmute me. Okay, there I go. It's more of a comment. I know that many of you are in other parts of the world and can't come to the gallery. But for those of you who can come to the gallery, everything you've seen tonight, whether it's David's work or Karen's, Joy's, or Richard's, is so much richer in person. I mean, the color, yes, these are marvelous, but you have no idea of how mind-blowing they are in real life. And so I just would encourage you, the gallery, we've made every effort to make it as safe as possible. We have air filters, we can leave the door open. You can come in and no one else, there'll be a gallery sitter and you can be there by yourself. But really, if you can come to see the work, it's an extraordinary experience. And it's also very beautiful the way that 4 very disparate artists somehow can work together. I mean, David has his own space, but then you move into the project space and somehow it all comes together. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to the gallery. And now I will mute.
I wanted to say something. I've been part of this gallery now for, I don't know, 7 years or something. I'm not even sure. But it's been a great experience. It's a wonderful community. It's an artist-run gallery. We do most of the work. It's very supportive. I learn from the other artists. And it's given a focus to my work, knowing that I'm going to be showing there. And people work really hard to hang the shows in a professional way, to keep the place clean and organized. We have a great gallery director, Amy, who helps keep us organized and together and thinking strategically about the future. So I just wanted to give a shout out to my gallery mates. It's a really good thing we got going.
Thanks, David. That was good.
I just wanted to mention, well, first of all, I just wanted to thank everybody so much for being a part of this. It makes it such a rich experience to have so many people come and hear about the work and just be a part of this whole experience. I just wanted to mention that we will continue now for an artist reception. We can, David and all the other artists will be here until 7:30. And our next solo show will be, we'll have Lee Blanchard's work, and it will be called Impressions. And in our project space, we'll have Over Time with Robin Roy, Janet Peterson, and Catlin Miller. Both of those shows will run from March 17th to April 18th. Can't believe we're talking about April already. The opening reception will be April 24th, and we'll have another artist talk on May 16th. That will focus on both of those shows.
Before I leave, David and Hazel, I just want to say we miss you so much personally, okay?
It's mutual, Ron, definitely. Let's get together.
We'll make a plan for a Zoom get together.
That's a great idea. So I'm gonna go, but I love you guys and we'll see you soon.
Love you too.
Take care.
Daryl, take care.
Same thing for me. We got to do a Zoom call.
Okay, Rita.
I got music. Also, I have Hazel earrings on today, just for this.
Oh, yay.
We're gonna do a Zoom.
I love that.
Thank you, Rita, for attending from Oakland, California. That's
Yeah,
totally-
shout out to
really
California.
appreciate it.
Will do. Will do. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Hey, Loretta. How goes it? And Oscar.
I love your stuff. Love all the stuff, actually. Didn't know there would be other artists. So that was a real bonus.
Excellent, excellent.
Oh, which is the accident. Oh, my magic.
Dad, Carol, you're muted.
I just want to say all three, all the artists were wonderful and really enjoyed the show so much.
Good work.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Take care. Dana.
Hey, how are you, David?
Hey.
I'm sorry we came in later. We're going to be able to see the work or not?
No, but we'll
Oh,
figure
damn.
We'll figure something out.
But is it really hanging up at 4:40?
Yeah. And
Yes.
Oh, then we'll go see the work.
Good.
I passed by today on my way to get my shot, and I'm going in tomorrow.
Very good. Very good. Yes, we are open. We are open.
Oh, excellent. Then we'll see the real thing. But not as good as seeing the real thing of David and Hazel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss you guys.
Yeah.
Let's have a Zoom get together.
Okay, we could do it.
Okay.
You bring the wine.
Hazel, you see that Frank is here?
Yeah. Hi, Frank.
Thank you for coming.
It's my cousins. I have
And-
several cousins on this call here.
Oh, cool.
And David Bales
Yeah,
zooming in from Oregon.
right.
I just have to say that, we're all part of the same gallery, and I see everybody's work a lot of the time. But hearing people talk about their work is it's so exciting to me, because I get to know things that I would just never know. And it really makes it a fascinating experience for me. So thanks to all the artists that spoke today.
I also think that, we're in the time of Zoom, which took me weeks to figure out how to do it. But I think it's wonderful, because when we have the artist talk at the gallery, it's always really nice. And but we can get about 20 people in the gallery. And here, the artist talks, we have 60 people, and people come in and out. But it really opens up the scope of who can be here with us and who can see the work. So I think it's been it's been good, and it came out of something so bad, but it's brought a lot more people to us. So it's really nice.
Joanne, I agree with you. I think that, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I agree with you. I mean, I think that there are certain things that people are finding during this COVID time that actually work very well. Like, a lot of people have found that they can work from home much more than they did before, which will actually cut down on the amount of fuel that people have to use. It may make it easier for people to work on their own schedules versus a schedule that somebody sets for them. But when it comes to being able to bring people in, the fact that you can really have, I guess, any number of people on a Zoom call. I don't know, is there a limit? Is there something in the technology? I mean,
I think there is a limit. I'm not sure what it is, but I think there is a limit.
You can pay for extra people.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you have too many, they want you to pay more. I don't think that it's a technology limitation.
I mean, it's sort of what it makes me think sort of is that, which I don't think is going to happen, is that if the epidemic went on long enough, the pandemic went on long enough, that probably people would naturally figure out how to make their work look really good on Zoom. And it might lead to work that looked best on Zoom, that people's energy might go into figuring out that, hey, let's really do it for that. I mean, in the same way that when people switch from film photography to digital photography, eventually, I think what happened was that, especially with color photography, it's just gotten much better. It's just gotten much richer because people can do it without all the complexities of working in a darkroom on color. And working with little negatives as then blowing them up, you know. So there are things that sometimes benefit from what seems like an impediment in the first place. And I think an artist talk is one of them. It's a great way to do it.
I find that during this time, I'm an artist because I spend time by myself and I create work in my studio by myself. And I now sort of have this justification where I could stay home and make art. And I don't have to justify any of that. It's not such a big stretch for me at all, really. I have more time now to even just stay here, and that's what I have to do. So it's, I think for a lot of people who have a studio-based practice, that is the case.
I think it is. I mean, one thing that has changed enormously for me is that I couldn't continue teaching. This was going to be my last year of teaching at the College of Mount St. Vincent on a half-time schedule. And I couldn't do it because to get up there in Riverdale from where I live on near Canal Street, I have to use the #1 train to commute. And I think it would have been just too risky. And so what that led to was a lot of worries about finances, which I think actually are in pretty good shape right now for me, but also more time to do things that I want to do. And one of the things that I love to do is look at really good art. And it's made my going to museums different. And also there aren't that many people around. And it's the same thing with time in my studio. I'm not continually having to balance time in my studio with getting all sorts of stuff ready for teaching.
I know what you mean.
Good.
Yeah.
And one thing that I came around to too, I really thought about this, was all the time that I put into writing recommendations. And what I've come around to now is no. If somebody wants a recommendation, I have a very good friend who's a very good writer who will work with you on it and charge you. And I will be happy to sign it if I think.
I see there's a question for Joy.
Yes, from Jeannie. Hi, Jeannie. Jeannie's joining us from Chicago, right?
Hi.
Yes. The paintings are so beautiful, thank you. And take me to the places. Do you name them? Yes. The painting from Central Park is called Smoke Gets in Your Skies. It is a reference.
Oh, I love it.
It is a reference to the smoke that blew over into the East Coast from the West Coast. And the painting in the snow is from Greenwood Cemetery, and it's just simply titled Greenwood in the Snow. That one, yeah.
I love how they've, it's almost the way you describe it, it sounds like a reflection of the sky in the snow.
Yes.
A bit.
I saw that when I
Beautiful.
was taking the walk there. There's something about the sky after a snowfall. The sky has a certain color, and I think it happens because, I think it's because all of the moisture in the snow actually gets up into the atmosphere of the sky and affects the color of the sky. And I saw that, and that was what I brought back to me in the studio to paint when I saw that.
Really
Hey,
special.
Karen. Hey, Karen, what media do you use in your work? It's so complex. There's all this hidden stuff in there. I'm just wondering what it's hard to tell on the screen.
You're talking to Joy?
Karen Gibbons, sorry.
Oh, Karen, okay.
Yeah, it's it starts with collage, and then I use water-based materials like acrylic and water-based drawing materials. And then sometimes I'll end up overlaying with oil-based materials. And sometimes it's already finished and I never get to the oil.
It's too bad. Wish I could see it in person.
Oh, I wish you could too.
Yeah.
And also, I often start with
About materials. Do you worry about priming the surfaces that you work on?
oh yeah, I prime it first. And
okay.
sometimes I prime it with acrylic medium that's clear. If I want the surface to show through, because I often start with something found, either a found object or even actually those square panels were acquired from someone else in our studio building. And so they had images and color on them already. So I sometimes I sand it down or paint over things that don't work, but sometimes I just use like some of the color or some of the shapes that are in whatever it is I've found.
Okay. Okay. Do you, when you find things, do you prime them?
Yeah, but because I don't want the acid in the material to destroy the.
Oh, right. It can go both ways. It's not just the paint going in the material, but the material going into what's on top of it, the paint.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
sometimes I'll prime with gesso, but other times I'll use acrylic medium, which is clear, and that seals it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, go for it.
I will.
Just want to say hi to Abby and Aretta, two fabulous artists who are also dear family members.
It's a beautiful show, both in your work and the work in the
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
David, can I ask you a question? Maybe this is stealing a working secret. What lens do you use?
Right now, for the past year or more, I've been using a Zeiss 40 millimeter lens. It's a Zeiss Batis lens, f2. One of the things I like about it, besides that it's a beautiful rendering, is that I can get really close to the subject if I want to. It's not a macro, but it can get in really, really close. And sometimes I like to do that.
Okay, a 40 millimeter. Yeah. Are you using it? What camera body do you use it on? Can I ask you that too?
Sony A7R4.
Thank you.
He's gonna
Hi,
steal
Alexis.
I must be related to Ani because I was going to say the same thing as she's not as eloquently. But one thing I noticed was in the photo with the flyers, that coffee cup on the bottom.
Yeah, that was, I love that.
Yeah, right in the middle.
It was, yeah, it kind of almost felt like that was balancing everything else, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the one you call anti-graffiti, like I saw it as a cover for a book on erasure, like social erasure.
Great idea.
So good.
Thank you.
Do you know, David, right away that you've taken the picture? You got it, you nailed it, that's it? You can go home?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
I do sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good feeling when that happens. But, you know, sometimes I know the photograph is there, but I can't get it yet. Maybe the light isn't right yet, or maybe I haven't figured it out yet. So I go back to the same places over and over and over. And then eventually, you know, in those situations, then when I get it, I know I got it.
I have places that I go back repeatedly and try and get some things, try and make it work for me. And I just can't. There's a waterfall in Prospect Park. I keep going back. I keep going and going. And it just doesn't happen.
Joy, can I ask you, would you ever basically do paintings that would be views of pretty much the same place, but at different times of day or different seasons of the year.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's something that intrigued me when I was looking at Monet's at the Metropolitan.
Yeah.
That I said, well, wait a minute, it's the same basic linear design, but it's like the haystack paintings where they're over.
Yeah.
So you do that. That's yeah.
Not a whole lot, but I do go back to the same places, but I'll always see something different. You know, and every
Right,
time I can go
okay.
to Coney Island, I'll see something different, and I never know what that is.
Yeah.
I also prefer not to go with something in mind. I prefer to go and have it surprise me, because that's when I go looking for something specific, I never find it. I find, yeah.
It's interesting that if you already know exactly what you want, then you don't find it somehow.
Yeah, that is very true.
Well, it seems like we've about done it.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's just it's so nice.
It's
A
so
really
great
great
to see you.
experience.
Susan, thank you for running a great talk.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Catlin, for
Well
helping.
done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great teamwork.
Yes, thanks to everybody and wonderful work. Congratulations, David, Karen, Richard, and Joy. It's been lovely. So and
Thank you,
So
Ellen.
many people I don't know.
Thank you all for coming.
There's a lot of teamwork that went into all this whole thing. Yeah.
Great job, everybody.
Hope to see everybody soon,
Yes.
one way or another.
One way or another. Yeah.
Bye.
Yes. Good night. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was great.